Hello and welcome to Newswire. I'm Ayza Omar. First and foremost, let me wish all our viewers celebrating Christmas a peaceful and joyous holiday on behalf of the Newswire team as well as Indus News. Unfortunately, in our world today, crime, terror and bloodshed, it does not stop for days that should be reserved for sharing love and empathy, for making happy memories and rejoicing life. The inhumanity perpetuated by the hands of those in power and the sufferings by the poor and powerless continue. Now in Yemen, a few days before Christmas, a rocket attack by unidentified assailants destroyed the offices of humanitarian organizations in South Yemen. As a result, a dozen of these organizations have suspended their operations. Now let me remind you that this war-torn country that has been wrecked with civil war and incalculable losses to human life since 2014 is currently facing the world's worst humanitarian crisis. There are currently over 24 million people facing starvation and death due to outbreaks of diseases and inaccessibility to basic necessities like food, water, medication. That's almost 80% of the population. And what to mention of the children, there are 12 million children included in these numbers that are suffering starvation at the moment. Around 360,000 are facing malnutrition and require immediate care. When unknown assailants fired rocket-propelled grenades on these offices, including the offices of Oxfam and the International Rescue Committee, a New York-based nonprofit, on Saturday, wounding a security guard and damaging their buildings, what were they thinking? Who were they attacking, and why would they want to harm those who are helping the people of Yemen who are in critical need of life-sustaining necessities? The UN humanitarian chief, Mr. Mark Lowcock, has condemned this attack and demanded that an investigation take place. The Prime Minister of Yemen has promised protection to relief workers and said those responsible will be held accountable. But what is the future of the Arab world's poorest country? How long will aid work be suspended, and at what cost to the Yemeni people? This and more we will be discussing with our guests, who I'll introduce now. We have with us Mr. Adel, the political analyst and research and writer. He's joining us from Istanbul. And also Mr. Arif Azani, an activist who is joining us from London right now. Welcome to both of you to Newswire. Mr. Deshilah, I want to start with you with this attack that has taken place and as a result suspended over a dozen humanitarian organizations in Yemen. What are your sentiments at this point? A very ill timing considering the kind of humanitarian crisis that is unfolding in Yemen.
Thank you for having me. Of course, aid workers should not be but you know the situation in Yemen. Unfortunately, these organizations have closed their offices in the government of Salah, and of course, the innocent people will suffer more and more. And you know, the conflict has killed over 10,000 people of Yemenis, and the Yemeni infrastructure is destroyed, and more than 3 million of Yemeni people displaced from their homes. And the country now is going to the brink of famine, and now the swine flu and fever have killed close to 200 people since October. So it happens because there is no stability, no security, no peace. This governorate is not under the Yemen security. It is under the control of militias in the South Yemen. And therefore, these organizations must ask the Yemeni government to provide them with security protection instead of closing their organizations. You know, now we have more militias in South Yemen, we have some militias in the West Yemen, and we have Houthi militias in the North Yemen. So it happens. We live in a non-state. There is no security, no peace, no stability, no government.
So when the Prime Minister of Yemen says, Abdul Kalim says that those who have perpetuated these attacks will be held accountable and that relief workers will be provided all kinds of protection, he's asked the local authorities to provide that. What does that mean to you? What does that translate into?
No, the Prime Minister doesn't have power, and he lives just in a small building in the city of Aden. He doesn't have power to say like this. We have to be clear. We don't have Yemeni. The Yemeni government is living outside of country, so that the Yemeni government now cannot bring or cannot provide these organizations with security protection. The Yemeni government can help these organizations just in Marib, in Hadramaut, in Al-Jof, and some areas which are under the control of the Yemeni government. These areas or these governorates are not under the control of the Yemeni government. So that just this is as a kind of propaganda, and the Yemeni government cannot do anything for these organizations.
Okay, let's bring in Mr. Azani here in this conversation. Mr. Azani, Mr. Deshilah has painted quite a wide picture of what the situation is like in Yemen in terms of the humanitarian crisis. But I'm going to ask you the same question of your understanding of when it is called the world's most biggest humanitarian crisis, when we talk about the millions who are right now at the brink of starvation. Paint us a picture to understand better what is the situation, especially now when we have information that just since October, 200 people have died on the hands of dengue and swine flu.
To understand the situation correctly, we need to go back a few years to the era before 2011, because I do believe that contributed so much to the current situation. So before 2011, we need to understand that the power system at that point of time created actually a situation where we don't have a proper governance that can sustain a situation as the situation that we have today. So I think that did contribute so much to the situation that we have today. Then we had the sequence of events from 2011 until now, including the 5 years of war. The combination of these two, the lack of governance and also the war and all the sequence of events, created actually a situation where people started, were stripped from their basic, economical ingredients. As you mentioned in your introduction, we have over 24 million people, including women and children, who are starving in a daily basis, and they lack very basic things like access to hospitals and medicine because of the economical blockade enforced on the region or on Yemen by the region, and also educational system, clean water. In addition to a lot of things, people being killed, either women or children, because of the war. A lot of people, millions of people, were displaced within the different places in Yemen. So a lot of people moved from their home villages or cities to another city with very minimal support from the international community, just to make sure that they're displaced to a place where they can get access to clean food, water, and housing also. Right. So with that, you can imagine that that can create the worst humanitarian crisis that we are facing. But unlike Syria, actually, where people were displaced to other regions, and that created or made an attention for their crisis, and invoked the different countries to resolve their problem. Yemeni were displaced internally. They were not receiving the right coverage from the media, which actually made their suffer worse and worse.
Right. But the question still remains, and Mr. Deshilah, I'm going to ask you this one. Who is behind? What is the understanding within Yemen? Who would be behind these attacks?
We cannot accuse any party or a conflict party. Maybe the radical group. We know that Al-Qaeda and some extremist groups live in the southern or in these areas, and these radical movements sometimes they say that we don't need these humanitarian organizations to provide us with food, with medicine, with any kind of help. And maybe these radical groups attacked or have attacked these organizations. Maybe it happens, or maybe some third party attack these organizations. We don't know. Sister, we have to understand that the situations are very bad in Yemen. And now we don't have the Yemeni government. We don't have security. We don't, everything is under the militias. So that it happens now, for example, tell me about Aden, the interim Yemeni government now. Who is ruling Aden? Who is ruling Sana'a? Who is ruling other governorates? You will find a lot of groups in these areas, and these armed groups want to achieve their aims by conflict, by fighting, by like this. So we don't know who wants to achieve his political aim, or who is behind this attack. Unfortunately, the innocent people will suffer more and more. The innocent and this governorate will suffer more because they will not get, for example, help in the future. And so that we are trying to help our people. How can we are helping them? How can we are helping them? By inviting this organization to continue of working and to provide the and to ask international community to support them with security protection. If the Yemeni government cannot ask them, these organizations must ask the Security Council to provide them with security protection to continue of supporting Yemenis with food and medicine and more.
But there is also a cultural context behind this. Mr. Azani, if I can ask you this, the reason there is hostility towards foreign health and humanitarian organizations who come in to provide relief efforts to residents of Yemen. What is that fear of these foreign workers that locals have?
To be honest, I don't believe that actually the hostility is meant to be against these agencies just simply because they are foreigners. I think as my fellow guest mentioned, it's more about a way from some parties which we cannot name for sure to apply pressure on the government and the local authorities just to push them to do something. So it's not really targeting these foreign agencies, but it's mainly targeting the government and the global powers just by threatening them to target their agencies. So I don't think that it's really targeting these foreigners just simply because they are foreigners.
Do you think, Mr. Azani, then this kind of tactics are working or will work? Have they in the past?
It did in the past. So if you go back, a couple of decades in Yemen and in early phases, some tribes, for example, started kidnapping foreigners in Yemen just to put pressure on the government to do something for them, and that tactic did work for them. So you can think of this as a similar way. It's just putting pressure on the government and some parties to do something because they know very well that when these foreigners are attacked, the governments are put in a very difficult spot, and hence they can push them to do something for them.
So, Mr. Deshilah, what is the way forward from here? The kind of pressure certain parties that can't be named are putting on the government. Do you think with this latest development, these 12 organizations down, millions at the brink of starvation, what do you see happening or unfolding in the next few weeks?
This is a kind of pressure, and maybe some radical groups want to get money from the organizations, and these organizations didn't get them. And maybe this is maybe as a kind of pressure from a radical movement, and maybe some militias from the South Yemen attack these organizations. We know that now the Southern movement or the Transitional Council as a separatist movement want to control the areas and the southern areas. And there are a lot of groups, as I told you, that we don't know which is the group that attacked these organizations. So we have Al-Qaeda, we have Daesh, we have Southern movement or Southern Council or like this separatist movement. We have Al-Houthi, we have tribal groups, a lot of groups, and we don't know that who attacked these organizations. And maybe it will be as a kind of pressure to get money. Maybe it will be as a kind, a kind of conflict between two parties in the government itself. We have, for example, a radical group and we have the southern groups. I mean that the security belt, which is under the control of transitional council, and other groups like radical movement. Maybe there is fighting between them. And these organizations are the victims of this conflict. We know situations are very complicated, and nobody can understand the situation well, only those who are living on the ground.
Okay. All right. Unfortunately, that's all the time we have to discuss this. Mr. Adel, Deshilah and Mr. Arif Azani, thank you so much for joining us here on Newswire. With this, we'll take a quick short break. We'll be right back. Welcome back. You're watching Newswire with me, Ayza Omar. We'll be talking about how Christmas is being celebrated in Gaza and the West Bank, especially after Israeli authorities have flip-flopped on the issue of giving travel permits to Palestinian Christians. Especially this year seems to have been an unprecedented amount of confusion in terms of who will be allowed. Will there be any travel permits given in the first place or not? Now, Israeli authorities did allow 55 Christians from the Gaza Strip to travel to the West Bank and to Jerusalem to celebrate Christmas. And this came in very last minute. It also was a total reversal of a earlier announced complete travel ban. Now, we will be talking about in somewhat detail about what is the background of why Palestinian Christians face so much trouble in visiting their religious holy sites, and also the decision not to issue them permits and how it was reversed. Was it the immediate backlash by the Christian Palestinian leaders or other human rights groups and churches and representatives from around the world? And at a time when Israel is being viewed by the ICC and being investigated for alleged war crimes, it is hitting the spotlight for all the wrong reasons time and again. So we will be discussing this with our guest. That means who we will be talking to today. We have with us Mr. Issam Edwan. He's a journalist, and he is also part of the special projects and a coordinator in We Are Not Numbers, which is an NGO for young adults in the Gaza Strip. He is joining us from Gaza today. And we also have Mr. Motasem, Dalloul, a journalist and a staff writer with the Middle East Monitor, right now located in Gaza. Welcome to both of you. I want to start with you, Mr. Edwan, right off the bat to help us understand this decision, the reversal of issuing no travel permits to Palestinian Christians. Give us an idea, the background of this. Is this something that Palestinian Christians face every year, this kind of confusion?
Yeah, of course. We're not talking about something new about the Israeli authorities. They are denying the right of those Palestinians, of those Gazans, to be more specific, the right and the freedom to travel. It's not about the religious perspective also, but it's also about the political. They are denying hundreds of people below the age of 40 to go throughout the Gaza crossing, to travel else for medical purposes, for educational purposes. Talking about the political, the religious perspective, we have more than 1,000 Christian in Gaza Strip. 950 of them asked for the permits to go to Bethlehem or to the West Bank to participate in religious activities, as everybody around the world would do. But yet the Israeli authorities only allowed 100. Less than 100 to go to Bethlehem in order to do the activities that they would
Mr.
like to do.
What is the reasoning? What is the reasoning that they give each time? What is the reason they've given this time round?
Well, the COGET, the coordinator of the government activities in the territories, posted an update on the website that they would allow a maximum of 500 citizens from Gaza to go to Bethlehem. And they, after a few hours, they removed that, claiming that it was posted by mistake, and they have corrected that Israel will allow just neglecting the area of the age restriction. But talking about that, Israel is always claiming that it's a matter of security issues, that they would not grant the Palestinians, the Gazans, the permits to travel anywhere. Not about the religious perspective, as they said.
Mr. Dalloul, shed light on this for us. The security concerns that the Israeli authority that issues these permits, how do they go through these? How do they decide that who will be allowed? Is there a specific age criteria? Is there affiliation to certain groups? How do they decide who goes through?
Exactly. If you want to know how do they decide, you can ask them if you want, because they are the decide who put the criteria and take the decision in this regard. But if you want to say in general, they want the main issue that make, or the main criteria that they want to inflict more suffering as they can on the Palestinians, whether they are Muslims or Christians, regardless to their religion. They are dedicated to inflict more and more suffering on the Palestinians in the way they can.
Mr. Dalloul, the reason I'm asking this, because the more we investigate into this, the more statements we get where mothers don't get their travel permits, but their infants will get travel permits. Children will get them, their fathers won't get them, or vice versa. Like this, there seems to be absolutely no logic to the mayhem that is what the COGAT does in terms of allowing those, for whether medical reasons or religious reasons, to get travel permits.
I'll just discuss this issue with the public relation officer in the Catholic Church in Gaza this morning, and I asked him about this, about the criteria the Israeli occupation is adopting regarding the decision who will get the permit or not. They told me that there is no criteria. The main criteria, the only criteria, or the only reason they consider when they give or issue the permits is trying to inflict more suffering. They want people, whether they are Christians or not, they want them to suffer more and more. This is part of the strict Israeli siege imposed on the Gaza Strip. They told me the Israeli occupation has so far issued 477 travel permits for one person from each family, whether it is infant or father or mother, so that most of these people who got the permits would not travel, because they can't celebrate or travel alone or individually and celebrate
so they deliberately, you're saying, it absolutely difficult and painful for those who are desperate to see their loved ones on the other side, who are also wanting to go for religious reasons, to avail this opportunity. Now, Mr. Edwan, let me also ask you that while the Palestinian liberation movement has recognized itself as a movement that does not discriminate between sects, that it is an anti-sectarian movement, it wants national unity, would you say that the Israeli government, their authorities, their security forces, the way their policies work, especially what we are seeing here with the travel permits, they have the same outlook or the complete opposite?
Well, I would say they have the same policy of denying permits of the Palestinian, talking about the sports activities, for example, talking about the medical activities, and also the religious activities. Israel is trying its best to deny the Palestinians, to deny the Gazans to participate, to do the human activities they would love to do. People around the world just have the right of movement. They have the right to participate, to go anywhere and anywhere they want. But in Gaza Strip, they have to apply 3-4 months prior the travel plan. Also, talking about, as Mr. Motasem mentioned, that Israel allow one member of each family to go to the West Bank or to Jerusalem, which is really nonsense, that even those members cannot go by themselves, because sometimes there are children, infants, or just mothers who cannot go by themselves. Israel is just generalizing its policy to different angles, that they would suffocate the Gaza Strip. It's a policy that lasted for more than 12 years, imposed on Gaza Strip. They are denying the life of the Gazans. And Israel, in a way or another, they're trying to show that it's a conflict. I'm talking about the Palestinian-Israeli conflict, that it's a Muslim-Jewish conflict, taking into consideration that the Christians are not being part of that. But also the Muslims are denied to go to Jerusalem, the Christians denied to go to Bethlehem and the West Bank, and also they have absolutely no right to ask for that.
So this is an interesting point introduced here, because I wanted to get to that also. While we spoke about sectarianism here, it seems that the Israelis don't only just have a beef with the Muslim Palestinians, that it goes beyond anybody who isn't under the umbrella of what they recognize as Jews. I want to ask you this, Mr. Dalloul, this kind of attitude when it comes across at a time like Christmas, especially now when Israel is facing a lot of international attention for not just the war crimes that the ICC wants to investigate them for, but also the kind of corruption charges Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu is facing. Do you feel like the conversation on the Israel-Palestine conflict is finally once again being renewed?
In fact, I feel that there is nothing new in the Israeli policy, regardless to anything is going on the Israeli arena, because since the early beginning of since the creation of the occupation state of Israel, it has been slaughtering Palestinians, killing Palestinians, inflicting suffering on the Palestinians. Imposing strict measures on them, attacking them every day, every night. They didn't stop, and day by day we see that, or we feel that their aggression on the Palestinians is increasing, not listening, despite the international pressure on them. Despite they have been ignoring all the international community resolutions. Right. They are ignoring all the international bodies. As you see, the ICC, when they replied or responded to the ICC, they claimed that the ICC doesn't have jurisdiction over the Palestinian territory. However, they are occupied and they are under their control, so that they try to ignore every human right, every international law, and continue their oppression and aggression against the Palestinians.
Right.
Nothing new, nothing renewed.
Nothing is new. Mr. Motasem Dalloul, thank you for joining us on this conversation. Coming back to you, Mr. Edwan, there has been a lot of backlash from Christian Palestinian leaders on this decision when it was earlier announced of a complete travel ban. But tell us a little about what the Archbishop Hana of Palestine's Greek Orthodox Church, what has his stand been in the past, and as well in this light? I mean, he was recently attacked with tear gas and hospitalized. How does he see the Palestine-Israel conflict and then this kind of discrimination against Palestinian Christians?
Of course, Mr. Atullah is known for showing that the Palestinian-Israeli conflict is not regarding to a religious issue. He stated like days ago that if you want to celebrate the Christmas, he's delivering the message to all the Christians around the world that before having fun, before enjoying your Christmas, you need to impose a pressure on Israel that to give the freedom for Palestinians to participate in their festivals, to participate in their religious activities, to take down the apartheid regime that Israel is imposing based on race, based on religion, based on whatsoever. Israel is imposing the policy that every Palestinian, every Arab, to be more specific, is denied a life. Even the Arabs that within Israel itself, within Israeli territories, they are denied from specific jobs. They are denied to go to specific places. They are denied to do specific activities. They are denied to go to Jerusalem, for example. So they are kind of segregation of those citizens, even within the Israeli territories. Mr. Atullah showed in so many different ways that the Israeli authorities are using the political context to show that it's a matter of Jewish, Muslim problem, but it's not.
And here I'm going to add another conversation. Dr. Basem Naeem, the spokesperson for Hamas, is joining us from Gaza today. Welcome, Dr. Naeem, again to Newswire. We're trying to explore and understand and dispel the myth that this Israel-Palestinian conflict is a conflict between the Zionist regime against the Muslims in Palestine, in Gaza, in the West Bank. With what is unfolding here and has year after year sort of not caught that much international attention. In terms of the Christian community, there are a little over 1,000 in Gaza alone who have to face this kind of religious discrimination. Tell us a little from your point of view of the kind of discrimination that takes place when even Israeli rights groups are speaking up very loudly this time that religious rights should be should be allowed for all groups or people in the territories?
Thank you very much. I think we talk here about the reality of Israel, the nature of Israel, racist and apartheid regime controlling the historical area called Palestine. When we see it here by Christmas celebration or other Muslim activities, the same behavior. Based on alleged security concern, they are denying around 1,000 Christians living in Gaza the entrance or the ability to travel to Bethlehem to celebrate with their brothers and sisters in Bethlehem, in Beit Sahur, and in Jerusalem, the Christmas. I think this is the reality of Israel, as I said, an apartheid and racist regime. This has nothing to do with religion. We have said it many times, Muslims and Christians, that we are not here dealing with a religious war. We are not dealing with a religious conflict. It is a matter of occupation, which is occupying our land, destroying our houses, killing our people. And I have here only to add, lastly, Israel, under the pressure of media and some international bodies, they have allowed a few number of Christians from Gaza to leave to Bethlehem. But when you go into detail, they have issued around 280 permissions to the Christians living in Gaza. But when you go into details, you will find that they have allowed children without their parents. They have allowed an old man, 85, 90 years old, without any companion. It means practically they are trying to avoid this international pressure or media pressure by giving theoretically permissions to some of the Christians, but practically many of them cannot leave Gaza to celebrate in Bethlehem or in Jerusalem.
Dr. Naeem, their concerns, the Israeli security forces, their concerns include that those who will be given access to their religious sites, who will be given access to Jerusalem, to West Bank, that they will overstay their welcome, they'll fall off the radar and try to stay on by hook or crook. Are these concerns legitimate, considering that while Israel calls itself the only democracy in the Middle East, that it is also one of the most racist to its own citizens?
Look, Ayza, first of all, we are talking about the basic right of people here in Palestine, in Gaza and the West Bank, in Jerusalem, freedom of religion, freedom of doing what they have to do in such occasions. Second, maybe you don't know or you are not aware about how sophisticated when you pass from Gaza to the West Bank through the Israeli checkpoints. You cannot even take with you a sandwich of a simple sandwich. You cannot take it. It is very sophisticated that they can exactly know who can leave, what he have, and so on. Thirdly, it is not only in Gaza, but you can see the same behavior in the West Bank, the same behavior in 48 occupied territories, attacking churches, destroying churches, killing priests, lastly trying to poison the Bishop Atallah Hanna, who accused the Jewish state or Israel clearly in the media that they are standing behind the trial of poisoning him. Therefore, it is not a matter of security. This is used, the same thing when they are allowing a child 5 years old to travel to Jerusalem for a kidney transplant, and they don't allow her mother or his mother to accompany him. The same thing, they are talking about security. I cannot imagine what does it mean security when a mother have to accompany her child 5 years old for kidney transplant or bone marrow transplant.
Right. No, but it's not just the Christian community. We already have seen what is unfolding, of course, for decades. But it's not just the Christian community that is discriminated against. It is also their own Jewish community. Mr. Edwan, if you could shed some light on this, those who are against Zionism, who stand apart, who don't even, who protest even being conscripted in the IDF, they face a lot of heat from the Israeli authorities. Is that correct?
Yeah, of course, we're talking about the minorities inside the Israeli society. We're talking about the BDS supporters within Israel. They are trying their best to show that Israeli issue is not concerned with the religious activities, is not concerned with the sport activities. It's just a matter that Israel is denying the life from the Palestinians, even within the Israeli society. They are trying to impose an apartheid regime that separates people according to their religion. They're considering that the Jewish people is above all religions. They're denying the life from Christians in Gaza Strip to go to Bethlehem. They're denying the Muslims in Gaza Strip to visit Jerusalem. And talking about the security concerns, the security checks they are doing. Like I have been doing that for the past 3-4 years. They have been allowing people above the age of 40, and they're denying some. They're allowing some children without their parents. They're allowing old parents without their company to go for medical concerns, for example. So what kind of concerns that Israel is trying to lie about, that it's about a security concern? It's not about that. It's about that they are trying their best to deny the Palestinians to do what life is about. They are also saying, in a way or another, that those Palestinians have absolutely no right to go anywhere unless you have the Israeli permit. We're talking about the West Bank security, hundreds of security checkpoints. And also those people going out from Gaza throughout Gaza crossing, they are crossing many checkpoints that they have the same possibility of being returned, of being investigated, being detained, the same absolutely possibility of risk they have on Gaza crossing.
And Dr. Basem, Naeem, we're running out of time here. And as we close this conversation, we come to the end of the year. Once again, another year going ahead without any kind of conclusive action to bring a stop to the kind of apartheid regime that Israel continues, the discrimination it continues, this verdict by the ICC, this investigation that is going forward. Do you have any hope that this might be the beginning, maybe, to the end of the atrocities Israel takes out on the Palestinians?
Thank you very much. We cannot, in any case, lose our hope in a better future. We will continue to hope in a better next year. But this is not only the responsibility of Palestinians who are oppressed and in the weaker point. This is the responsibility of Arabs, Muslims, and free people around the world to say no for this apartheid regime, to make an end for this oppression. Especially, this case was created by the international community. Israel was born in the United Nations, and the birth certificate was signed by the General Commissioner of the United Nations. Therefore, they have to take the responsibility. Lastly, we have seen how was the response of Israel to the ICC Attorney General, when they have accused the Attorney General after 5 years of investigation to say that there is a case of investigation that they are anti-Semite. Immediately, they are accused them as an anti-Semite. I think, but I have to add one point. It is fully true what you have said, that even Jews in Israel are suffering discrimination because they are dividing the Jews themselves into categories. The first one is the Ashkenaz who are coming from the West, then the Sephardim, then the Ashkenaz who come from the Arabic and Islamic countries. Then we have the African, or like people who came from Eritrea or Ethiopia, and then the Druze, and then the Christian. This is the nature of Israel. It is a racist and apartheid regime. We will hope and we will continue to fight and to struggle, and we will sure not give up our struggle against this oppression and against this apartheid.
All right, Dr. Basem, Naeem, and Mr. Issam, thank you for joining this conversation, shedding light on the kind of discrimination Palestinian Christians are also facing on this Christmas. Once again, it's nothing new. It is not unprecedented. The travel permits, so completely banned, were then last minute issued, creating a lot of confusion. But them in itself was of no help, as entire families were not issued travel permits, but one per family were. Now, with that, we've come to the end of the program. We will be seeing you next week. Till then, goodbye.